The Augusta woman cannot be charged as adults. This is according to the revised Kansas Juvenile Justice Code. New information tonight. Let's get on over to Brandon Stitt, who's been following the arrest and this new information since it was all announced. Brandon?
Yeah, Rachel, the statute is clear in one sentence. No juvenile less than 14 years of age shall be prosecuted as an adult. Now that means even if convicted, these two 14-year-old girls charged with the murder of Joanne Johnson can only serve time until they're 22 and a half years old. Two 14-year-old Augusta girls now charged with last September's murder of 93-year-old Joanne Johnson. A murder the family has called brutal and calculated. Appearing by Zoom before a Butler County judge ordered to remain in custody in separate facilities. The Butler County attorney officially charging the girls with first-degree murder, a charge that could put an adult in prison for life. But in this revised Kansas Juvenile Justice Code, the language is clear. No juvenile less than 14 years of age shall be prosecuted as an adult. Even the facts of the case typically released to the public in adult cases. For example, the probable cause affidavit detailing what happened or motives could be sealed. This would leave it impossible for prosecutors or judges to inform the public of the details that are most certainly of great public interest. And a Butler County judge is expected to rule on the release of that probable cause affidavit later this week. The suspect's first appearance by Zoom is scheduled for August 29th, and the county attorney confirmed today that at this time, the two girls that were arrested are the only ones arrested in this case.